Welcome to Scrolling to Death. Today, I am honored to be joined by Senator Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee. Welcome to the podcast, Senator Blackburn.
Happy to be with you. Thank you.
You're welcome. We're going to have a brief but very important conversation about kids' online safety. First, thank you for being such a supporter of parents' struggle in this space. Listeners here are parents who are worried about social media, but we feel pressure to give our kids access so they won't be ostracized from their friends. So my first question is, can you share, in your opinion, is social media currently safe for kids to use?
There are some dangers on social media, and like everything else, there's good and bad. And what we have learned over the past decade specifically are what we've developed an awareness for is the dangers that these social media platforms present to our children, because the algorithms that are there, once they click on something to see what something is, it feeds them more of that, and it puts them into this downward spiral, whether it's eating disorders, information on suicide, whether it's meeting pedophiles or drug dealers, and it puts our children in a place where they are being inundated with material, many times CSAM or pornographic material. And, they wouldn't be exposed to that in the physical space because guess what? There are laws that prohibit you from taking children to a strip club or exposing them to pornography, or them even picking up a magazine that has suggestive or sexually explicit material, or taking them into a liquor store selling liquor to an underage individual, or selling cigarettes to an underage individual. So there are some prohibitions in place in the physical space, but what we've seen is there is nothing in the virtual space. And all too often when parents report something to a social media platform, they don't respond and they don't take an action.
Yes, that is what I'm hearing. And I've interviewed parents and young people who were served through the algorithm suicide content, eating disorder content, as you said, even when they weren't searching for it. So why are social media companies allowed to do this? Why can't they serve our kids harmful content without being held liable for it?
What has happened is these social media platforms are data hungry, and they're data hungry for the information of our kids. And the longer you can keep someone online, then the richer that data is. Now, the value of these social media platforms is in the number of eyeballs that they control and the length of time those eyeballs will stay with them. That means that space, that advertising space, is more valuable for advertisers. So social media platforms monetize this. And Congress has never taken an action that would hold these platforms accountable. And that's why the Kids Online Safety Act is so vitally important, because it would require safety by design. It would require safety as default settings and would open up those algorithmic black boxes and allow kids and parents to set this so that they're not being exposed to harmful material. It also would say, here is a portal for parents and kids to report bad actors, and it would require these social media platforms to respond to those reports, and also to submit to an audit, a third-party audit each year, to make certain that they're complying with the law.
Okay. And thank you for introducing listeners to KOSA. Kids Online Safety Act is very important. Parents that have lost children through a social media harm that I've interviewed, dozens and dozens of them, all support KOSA and are eager to get this passed. You first introduced KOSA in early 2022. Why haven't we been able to get this passed? I assume we're facing some pushback on behalf of big tech.
Oh, I've got to tell you, big tech has an army of lawyers and lobbyists, and certainly Senator Blumenthal and I have felt the impact of those lobbyists that work for them. They fought this every step of the way. As I said earlier, these platforms make a lot of money off of selling data and information about the kids, and that's valuable to these social media platforms. And the richer that data, the more companies will pay for that data and for that information. But we are so pleased now. We've got 70 co-sponsors in the Senate, and we think this is going to come off the Senate floor very soon, and it should quickly go through the House and to President Biden's desk.
Amazing. Okay. Has President Biden indicated whether he would sign this legislation?
He has indicated that he would sign the legislation, and we are certainly hopeful that we can get it to him soon. Of course, we were thrilled to have the Report Act go through both the House and the Senate and be signed by President Biden. And it went through each chamber unanimously, which I know that's a little bit unheard of these days, but we were able to build that support.
Okay. And let's talk briefly about the Report Act. So there's an epidemic that has been affecting millions of U.S. teenagers, and that is called sextortion. I've been educating listeners a lot about it. I recently interviewed John DeMay, who lost his son Jordan to suicide just hours after first being targeted with a sextortion scheme on Instagram. And I've learned that just last year, there was over 36 million reports of child sexual exploitation through NCMEC's tip line. And it's estimated that only 10% of actual cases are being reported. So we're talking about maybe 250,000 cases of sextortion against our teenage children. And I was so relieved to see this bill pass called the Report Act, sponsored by yourself and Georgia Senator Jon Ossoff, to help fight sextortion. Can you just tell listeners a little bit more about the Report Act and what it does?
Yes, indeed. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children had mentioned to us that they were handicapped on how long they could keep the information that was coming to them from exposures online. And this is when you have a pedophile or a predator and they are displaying CSAM or exploitative material online. And NCMEC could only hold it for 90 days. So our legislation does a few key things. Number one, it allows NCMEC to hold this information for up to a year, and then to transfer this information to law enforcement, to prosecutors and judges using the internet, which means they don't have to put it on a thumb drive. They don't have to print it out. They can send by email these files. That is a big step. Plus, it increases the penalty on social media platforms when they know they have someone exploiting children or displaying CSAM. And it's reported to NCMEC. If they don't take them down, the penalty is raised up to $1 million. The other important step in this is that it allows law enforcement a longer window to get these individuals into court. So if you've got NCMEC that can hold this for a year instead of 90 days, you've got prosecutors that can actually get these pedophiles and predators into court, convict them and put them in jail where they belong, and get them away from our children. So putting the penalty on social media, holding them responsible and accountable, increasing the fine they will have to pay if they don't remove these individuals. This should be a big step in helping us to rid some of this exploitative material and save some of these kids who are being subjected to these horrific sextortion schemes.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Senator Blackburn. It's been really devastating to see how many children we've lost and continue to lose because the social media companies don't do anything meaningful to eradicate this content. So that is so appreciated by parents. So how can parents use our voices to help support getting KOSA passed? What can parents do?
Well, a couple of things there. I would encourage them to stay in touch with us. They'll find me on social media at Marsha Blackburn. Our website is blackburn.senate.gov. All the information about KOSA is there.
Okay.
And then they should reach out to their members of the House and Senate. If they're not a co-sponsor and they're in the Senate, then they need to pop on this bill before we pass it out of the Senate this month.
Yep.
If they are talking to House members, encourage them to get it out of Energy and Commerce Committee and off the House floor at some point this month so we can get it to the president's desk.
Okay. Thank you. I'll include all that information in the episode notes. And Senator Blackburn, let's wrap up. Thank you again for everything that you do. Thank you for giving parents a voice. Parents I saw like Gail Flatt, who's a mom from your home state of Tennessee, who lost her 14-year-old daughter to suicide because of social media harms. And Gail's story is not unique. I've spoken with dozens of parents who have lost children, and the stories of harms are just rolling in like an avalanche, and we feel buried, and it can be hard to see a way out. But with your efforts in tandem with parents' voices, I believe we can fix this. And so we're with you. Let's get KOSA passed. And thank you again for doing this today.
Thank you so much. Take care.
You too.